All right, welcome to Lights Camera Barstool. Today we are doing the Glicked review. That's right, Gladiator and Wicked. No crazy news. We backed this up pretty quickly to the last episode. Not a ton of news has dropped in between the points. We're just going to do straight Gladiator, straight Wicked, intravenous right into your veins. Um, Me and Gooch were talking about it earlier. It is kind of funny that they tried to make Glicked a thing, I would say, and the discourse so far has basically just been Wicked. It's all Wicked. It's very not as much Gladiator.
Yeah, I mean, there's with good. I mean, I know Gooch loved it a lot, but it's with good reason because one is being very well received, and the other has like kind of like room temperature fart reaction to it.
Yeah.
Like it's not going to ruin your day. Some may be okay with the smell, I guess, but for the most part, it's kind of like whatever.
They also did not market like Wicked's marketing team was on it. Like they
Well,
were
yeah, for absolutely.
they were
Hmm.
on it. But I'm saying Gladiator's team kind of fumbled the bag. Like I don't know if you guys saw yesterday one of the old Gladiator promo like TV ads went around from 2000 and they knew exactly what they were doing then because they were like playing like sports highlights and then there would be like Russell Crowe being like, "Are you not entertained?" And you're like,
Yeah.
"You think these guys go hard at it? Wait till you see Gladiator." That's how
Hmm.
they should have been marketing this movie. Get the guys out, like market
It's
it correctly.
I saw Wicked commercials more during football than I saw Gladiator, but like, did Ridley Scott do something to the marketing departments of the movies that he makes? Like, no, it's since Martian, it's nothing. I guess Gucci had a little bit, but like,
Gucci's had the
that was before
bad
the
trailer
existence
too.
of
It was
Lady
the
Gaga.
Gucci was just that one moment that everyone kept making fun of, which is
House
the
of
father
Gucci.
son House of Gucci or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
It's really bizarro. And the weird thing is Wicked did so much like they spent so much money in the marketing, so much care put into that. They put care into everything except the trailers, I would say, which were like the worst part about the entire marketing campaign, at least to me anyway. But yeah, we can start out with Gladiator 2. After his home is conquered by the tyrannical emperors who now lead Rome, Lucius is forced to enter the Colosseum and must look to his past to find strength to return to the glory of Rome to its people. Directed again by Ridley Scott. It's written by David Scarpa, who did Napoleon for Ridley Scott. He also did Man in the High Castle. Shout out me and Jeff. We look
Oh,
big watchers of Man in the High
oh.
Castle. Directed, also written by Peter Craig, who did Top Gun Maverick, The Batman, Bad Boys for Life, and The Town. Expansive filmography for that screenwriter. Stars Paul Mescal, Denzel, Pedro Pascal, Connie Nielsen, Joseph Quinn, Fred Heschinger, and Matt Lucas. Big crew. Um, I will say that I went to this movie with tempered expectations just because of what critics had said, what some other people at least the ones that I trusted said, and I was still kind of let down by this movie. I think the surface level stuff of Gladiator 2 is like action, visuals that they work, but the base story is so scattered and just doesn't have enough time to develop like anything into anything. And you add on to the fact that I think Paul Mescal was just the wrong fit for this
Yeah.
role, and it really made the movie fall flat for me really badly. I was not a huge fan of Gladiator 2.
All of the like inspiration and like greatness of Russell Crowe's character, I just didn't feel it. He looks the part.
Physically, yeah.
He looks the part. He just like he everything was flat to me. That
Strength
was
and
my
honor.
issue.
Strength and honor.
Yeah, it's brutal. It's like
Come on. I have thoughts.
mhm. Okay, so we could kind of break it down to like I guess a pro and con, or at least break it down to whatever we liked and disliked about it. I don't know how you guys felt about it. I think the action for the most part looked really good, especially like the opening fight sequence. I think was like, oh man, we're really getting something cool here because that is awesome. That's like to me reminded me a lot of like that opening fight sequence you get in like Germania with in the first Gladiator. Really cool, big set piece shit, like all big fights and all that. That looked great. And some of the 1v1s we get like later in like the Coliseum and stuff, that looks cool. I think Denzel was a really good fit in this movie. Like, and that's one where everyone's like, how's it going to work with him just doing Denzel's accent? But it really didn't hurt my suspension of disbelief at all. And the production value and some of the sets were really good. But I don't know. That's the stuff I could say confidently this movie does well.
There was two different movies happening here in my book.
Yes.
There
Hmm.
was the movie Denzel was in, and then there was the movie that like the Denzel was in, and I forget the
The
kid's
Emperors.
name, and then
Fred
Joseph Quinn, and
Hersinger.
then everyone else.
Hmm.
And that was my biggest issue.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
see, that's where I think Paul Mescal, like the complaints about Paul Mescal's performance, that's where I feel like they're coming from. I think Paul Mescal was written a certain way, along with Connie Nielsen, who also I think her character falls flat pretty hard, and Pedro Pascal's character as well. Those three are in a completely different movie from the Denzel, Fred Hershinger, Joe Quinn movie, which is a
Yep.
much more entertaining movie. And every time you jump back and forth from one to the other, you're like, well, I'd rather be with Denzel right now. And then you go over to this sentimental storyline, which just is not hitting the correct notes. And I don't think that's Paul Mescal's fault as much as it is.
No, that's not his fault.
Hmm.
Yes, he gets written into this corner where, and we'll talk about more spoilers, where he's constantly being compared to Russell Crowe's Maximus, who's just a cooler character, a character with way more gravitas, way more charisma that his character just cannot live up to at any point.
Hmm.
I guess like why my thing is the entire movie I'm asking myself, why do I care about his revenge here?
Mm-hmm.
Like what is like even like I mean even like the Pedro Pascal of it all. It's like I mean I guess he ordered the kill on his wife, but like he didn't. I don't know. He didn't kill her. I don't know. It's like it's a little flimsy to me. It's like I couldn't like get up there with that. Like I would have rathered it been like it all starts with Denzel's character from like the beginning. Like
Hmm.
that would have been my preference. Like that would have gotten me to care.
Yeah, so let's talk about spoilers because it's a tough one to talk about without spoiling too heavily. So if you haven't watched, skip forward. I think like the biggest, and you guys are hitting on this too. I think the biggest problem is the story just it was bad, and it felt like I think that they thought they were too close to a rerun of the original, and like, hey, here's this powerful, once powerful person that's now brought low and forced to fight in the arena versus a tyrannical emperor. So they try to add a lot of like bells and whistles to kind of like distract you, and that didn't work for me because like you guys are saying there's so many moving parts and that split the focus so bad between all these different characters and that just made it I think specifically with the Denzel and the Empress thing there's just too many villains. There's too many villains. You
Yeah.
don't like that would help me feel more anger versus the Emperor, more maybe more anger versus Pedro Pascal, maybe more anger versus like think about that. Pedro Pascal, Denzel, and these two twin emperors are all villains at some point during this movie. Like you just you don't have the singular focus and hatred that you get out of Gladiator, where it's just you have Maximus fighting against Commodus, and that to me is so simple. And this story gets so muddled in this that it is very tough for. It need more runtime. If you gave this movie like 4 hours, maybe that would work. It just not. You can't do that in 2.5.
There's like some silliness going on with Denzel and the monkey and the twins, and then there's like this serious like we have to get this uprising. My parents like I don't know. It's just like I don't know.
Yeah, no, Kenjac, we were speaking before. I think this director's cut is going to absolutely rip.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, Ridley Scott infamously has many director's cuts that are better than his original theatrical releases. And this one just felt like it needed another hour and a half of runtime. He creates too many storylines and he wants you to really invest in all of them. And you don't have the time, like Jeff was saying, to care. You don't like with Russell Crowe's character with Maximus in the first film, they set that up so perfectly. His wife and kid get killed. His basically adopted father are killed right off the bat. So you're immediately on his side, and you hate Joaquin Phoenix's Commodus.
Hmm.
Here, you don't even know why you should hate the emperors. They're bad emperors, but are they evil or are they just maniacal and kind of fucked up?
Hmm. The I think another, and I just want to touch back on Paul Mescal for a bit, because I know you really you liked him, and
I
I
did
think
like them.
and
Yeah,
me and Jeff didn't really like him. I think that what made him not fit for me is because they really, and I think you're kind of maybe trying to give him a little more leeway with this. They really wanted him to just be the Russell Crowe Maximus character. They really, and that is what the role is written for. And I think if that's the role you're written for, you don't cast Pedro or you don't cast Paul Mescal because he's not the right fit for that. There's just like so much presence and delivery and physicality, and I think like Mescal is a very good actor, but he lacks all of that. Like he does not have any of those traits to fit that role. And instead of like changing the role of Lucius to fit him as an actor, I think they did a very square peg round hole thing with him as an actor. And making him like a one-to-one of Maximus was such a mistake. And I think all these moments where you have like these big inspirational speeches, they fell so flat. Where I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe for a second there is a warrior that is going to be inspired by Paul Mescal. Like
Yep,
him
that was
digging
my
the
problem.
yeah, and me and Fights even mentioned the speech at the end. Like, I think Fights had said, like, he was watching the speech at the end and he wanted to just grab Paul Mescal and be like, "You're the fucking gladiator, dude. Like, act like it. Like, you're supposed to be like this big guy, inspiring loyalty, inspiring courage, inspiring like all these people to go and like risk their lives for like your mom, and like all you can muster is like a little like, yeah, strength and honor, and like I don't, just none of that works. That doesn't work at all.
Where we are, death is not. Come on.
Yeah, that
Where we
line,
are, death is not. That was a
that
bad line.
that was a bad
Um,
line, bad line.
but my question, my follow-up question then would be, if it's not Paul Mescal, who possibly in the current Hollywood landscape could fit into that Russell Crowe, that 2000 Russell Crowe like spot? Like, I don't think we have an actor right now who can even pull that off.
I think someone had tweeted to me like if this was 10 years ago, like Chris Hemsworth would be a perfect fit, and he would have been. He would have been a fantastic fit for like that sort of physicality
Yeah.
of a role. He has that voice. He had, like Timothy Chalamet, even if you look at him in like Dune 2, like he doesn't have that like physical giant presence that like a Russell Crowe had, but like his command of a screen and like that charisma of like that scene in Dune 2 where he's like talking to the Sietch or whatever, like he has that. Paul Mescal just doesn't have that.
I think a smarter decision would have been to keep Paul Mescal because they kind of write his character in the first half way differently than in the second half, where he tries to take up Maximus's mantle. Where in the first half, he's just kind of a psychopath, like an absolute psychopath returning home. It kind of reminded me of The Northman with Skarsgård. Like the Promised Prince comes home, he's fucking wiry, he's dirty, he's a psychopath. I mean, he's biting a baboon, he's eating a baboon.
Mm.
I think if they had stayed on that course and kept him in that lane instead of trying to, like you said, fit him into go round peg into a square hole, I think that would have been much smarter. But I think for me, I feel like the reason people are hating this Paul Mescal performance is because the script and the movie just beg you to compare him to prime Russell Crowe, which is just tough, just impossible.
He wears his armor. They script him into wearing his armor and fighting with his sword and saying his things and going and leading a fucking gladiator revolt. Like this is all they pointedly want you to think of him in the same light as Maximus, and that just doesn't work. He doesn't have that. And it's not like a knock against him as an actor, I don't think. It's just not who he is yet.
You guys want to talk about Denzel?
He's
Yeah.
great. I mean, I don't know if he's my pick for supporting actor, but I would still pick Kieran Culkin, who seems to be the favorite by a hair.
Mhm.
I guess I haven't seen Brutalist yet, but he was great. And if you would have asked me a month ago why I gave this movie a 79, I would have said fucking 21 points for Denzel was
Yeah.
horrible. So that would have been my guess. So yeah, impressive.
His performance was like the Chris Paul like meme where it's like he hits a big three to knock the lead down to 53. Like that was Denzel basically this entire movie. It's like him just ripping off cool ass lines like it's about politics. Like all that shit, dude. He had such great delivery and like so many people were so pissed about it. They're like, "Oh, he's just doing his accent." Like these guys are doing fucking British accents. It makes no difference to me. They're in ancient Rome. They shouldn't be speaking fucking English or with an English accent at all. Like none of that mattered. But he was so good. That character was like rich and like interesting and had a lot of depth. And I think that him being that good and that interesting and that like well fleshed out, I think one of you had mentioned in our group text about it. Like it did hurt Mescal. Like it did hurt him how badly he got acted under the table by Denzel. For better or for worse, you could say for script, but you could say that's by service of the script. But like he did make him look much worse.
And it's just again, it was like he was in a different movie. It was like Ridley Scott was like, "Hey, you got to be silly." And then everyone else was like, "Hey, you got to be really fucking serious."
Dramatic.
And it
Yeah.
just the contrast is just so bizarre to me. It kind of reminded me of how out of place Jared Leto's character was in House of Gucci.
Mm,
Like just odd. Not that, I mean, not that bad because this is a great
Hello.
performance.
yeah. That one was bad. The you know what and that kind of reminds me too. Like even the Twin Emperors, like I think Joseph Quinn was more to me like I liked him better than I liked Hershinger, but I think both of them were good. They were not given enough time to develop as like a villain or whatever, right? And that's fine. They were surface level ripoffs of Commodus, which is also fine. But like them existing draws you away from Denzel. Denzel draws you away from Pedro Pascal. Like everybody is doing a disservice to each other in this movie by drawing focus away from other shit. Even like Connie Nielsen to a degree, like draws you away from Paul Mescal. Like all of it is none of it works in like cohesively, I would say, really at all. And that really hurt me. And I think what really hurt too, why the fuck would you even cast Pedro Pascal in this if you're going to give him 5 lines? That to me was crazy and give him no development, no nothing. He's just there. And like this is one of the hottest names in all Hollywood. That made no sense to me.
I will say Pedro Pascal is someone that I think is a good actor, but I've firmly kind of held to the belief that he is a television actor. This kind of proved me wrong. I thought he was with limited, screen time and limited, speaking, I thought he was really great. I mean, he fit into that world
For
perfectly,
sure.
especially his physicality, like the action scenes. I mean, obviously we know Oberyn, he was great as that, but you haven't seen it in so long. He doesn't do the Mando suit. I didn't know if he'd still have it, and he was just as good as ever.
He would have been a good, like, if they did a full reboot of Gladiator, he would be a great Maximus.
Yeah.
hmm Um,
Mescal's
uh,
good in After Sun. I
he's
don't
a
know if
good
he's good in a
actor.
role like this.
He's a very good actor, just not a great fit here.
Yeah.
He is a good
Um,
act. And I think something to remember is Russell Crowe was like he was a fully formed actor by 2000. Like he had a dominant 90s. He had come into his own. Mescal is still very young. Like his biggest role is After Sun, which made $10 million at the box
yeah,
office. And Normal People, which
good show.
I don't think a person over the age of 40 has seen that show.
Yeah, this just wasn't. It was very square peg round hole, and I think if Ridley Scott was dead on, like, or dead, just serious, like, I really want Paul Mescal in this movie. You change the character to fit him in his strength as an actor. You don't force him into something he's clearly not great at. It just doesn't, you know what I mean. You don't fucking have like a Shaq on your team to shoot 3 pointers. You know what I mean? Like, it just doesn't. It did nothing about it fit his strengths. I also thought Connie Nielsen maybe took up too much screen time too, because like that character
Yes. Oh,
there's a lot of Connie Nielsen. That was not necessary.
she's lucky I saw Lucy Liu in Red One a few days ago because that I mean she was. Also, did you think that Russell Crowe's going to show up as like a Force ghost at the end there when he was in the arena and he's picking up the
Yeah,
dirt?
yeah. I
He's
thought he
like,
was gonna.
"Speak to me, Father." I swear to God, I was like, he's about to be in the clouds. I was
Yeah,
like, he's about to be in the fucking cloud. He wasn't obviously, but
I thought he was about to
I
dig out the fucking little dolls that the guy buried in the first one. I thought for sure that was about to happen.
Were you guys like for long stretches of the runtime digging through your memory to like see like did I miss a part of Gladiator the million times I've watched it?
No, you didn't. You
Because
didn't really have to worry about it too much because they showed you about 1,000 flashbacks throughout the movie.
but like in the sense of like Lucius being I guess we've gotten this far, Lucius being Maximus's son, they bring up multiple things throughout. They're like, did that happen in Gladiator? I cannot remember. Like obviously the affair is like allusion to or like they had a past.
Yeah, they imply
But
that. Not a kid,
But
but
the kid, them having a kid together, especially with how like much of a driving force in Gladiator, his relationship to his wife and his kids is, you wouldn't think of him as being a adulterer.
you're
yeah.
right.
And
And there's a scene in Gladiator when he first starts talking to Connie Nielsen where like they're talking about their sons, and he's like, "Oh, your son is only like 8 months older than
Mhm.
mine," or something, and it's like, "Oh, yeah, yeah, you were fucking, weren't you, Maximus?" That stuff isn't is was kind of weird, but yeah, the other flashback stuff I didn't love either. When they would just like flashback to whatever sequence. I think you trust your audience a little bit. This is one of like the most like widely like watched movies. Like trust them to have remember some stuff from Gladiator. On a whole, I just think bad story, not enough time to flesh anything out. Bad casting in Mescal. Like again, I'm not saying he's a bad actor. I think he's a good actor. This was just not the right role for him. He and some of the production value stuff, like some of the big sets look great, and then you'd randomly have those fucking CGI baboons, which looked horrible.
what
Those
the
look
fuck
Oh,
was that?
terrible.
those were
Every animal in
And
this
the
movie.
worst looking one was the one that he fought.
yeah, it looked bad.
Why
It
was
looked
that?
I don't know. You figure all the
Why?
care would be put into that, and they also like
Why? Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, they also kind of like gloss over the fact that like all those guys were fighting the baboons, right? Like, and Paul Mescal bites the one and then kills it, and all the other baboons are immediately gone. And they were fucking everybody up, and all of a sudden they're all just dead. Like, that's the scene just ends very unceremoniously, like a lot of other scenes in this.
That was a very weird decision to have those animals throughout
Yeah,
the movie. Like the sharks obviously did not work. Like it never made sense for the sharks. Like there's a level of suspension of disbelief you can get to, but sharks in the Coliseum, like 10 of them, it's kind of tough to
That was
gloss
like my
over.
favorite scene though because it fit like the fun vibe that I was getting from Denzel.
Yes.
hmm
And it also had color. It popped. It did look like look. I know like Rome, like whatever. Like that area didn't have like lush greenery like around like every single part, and like it's not like the 1960s. It doesn't need to pop with that much color, but there is like there's a little bit to like that. The one with the water, it kind of just popped a little bit,
yeah,
and it fit
Mhm.
more with the vibe of the movie, and that's why that scene I like the most.
Yeah, I would agree with you too.
I
But
also
yeah,
loved I loved the way a lot of outside of the animals, I did love the way this movie looked. I will say that. Like
a lot of the
especially
sets were really good.
like the Paladin Hills, like the mansions that the emperors and Connie Nielsen live in, like you rarely get that in those movies. You didn't get it at all in Gladiator. And it was nice to get those like just intimate areas, like the tunnels in the back alleys that they use, stuff like that.
Hmm.
Love the look of that. I'm higher than you all are on this, but I'm fully aware this is a far from perfect movie. It's in a weird spot where it's a follow-up to a Best Picture winner, but I would say it's a guilty pleasure for me. You know what I mean? Like it's a guilty pleasure enjoyment for me. I'm fully aware of that, but it has issues. I'm just willing to overlook them
Mm.
for now.
I'm on,
I want him to make another one. I'll say
what
that
would you
much.
score it at?
An 80, probably right at an 80. But my 80 is a little different than Jeff's 79, I guess. So
Yeah.
probably
I,
higher.
I would have it at like I would say closer to a 70. It's just there's so much about it that really falls flat. And again, this is what I said like right before we started recording. I think the director's cut of this is going to be awesome because there's so obviously obviously needed more time to develop all of these different storylines they had going on. And there are so many scenes that end, I feel so abruptly where it's like clearly
Mhm.
something else was supposed to happen here, but like you didn't have you had to cut time somewhere and there's this seemed like a good space to skip a little bit. So I think the director's cut of this is going to be really good. It's just until then, with the existing version we have, I was not thrilled with it, and I wasn't expecting a ton. I still just felt let down. But now we could talk about a movie that was the opposite of that in Wicked. Wicked, Elphaba, the misunderstood young woman because of her green skin, and Glinda, it's Galinda. Why did the description put her as Galinda first? Glinda wasn't
It's
until
still
later.
Linda.
It's Galinda first, and then it's Galinda later. But in the description, they just put her as Glinda. But I guess that's what she is. Whatever. A popular girl become friends at Shiz University at the University of Oz after an encounter with the wonderful Wizard of Oz. The friendship reaches a crossroads. Directed by John Chu, who's obviously done a ton of amazing stuff. Written by a lot of the same crew that did the Wicked the stage musical, but also written by Dana Fox, who did Cruella, which I think you could definitely feel a little bit of that within the movie after knowing it. Cynthia Erivo, Ariana Grande, Jeff Goldblum, Michelle Yeoh, Jonathan Bailey, bunch of others, including fuck's his name, Ethan Slater. Um, I'll just get the big hitter out of the way. Hand up, totally wrong. I watched these trailers for this movie, and I was rarely more confident that a movie would be bad than I was after seeing those horrible, horrible trailers, which not only made this look like a big CGI slop fest that had nothing to do other than
Uh-huh.
show you big nasty scenes on blue screen, but also like cut up scenes and made them worse. Like patched up dialogue that didn't match with the scene that was happening. Like they cut stuff from scene A and put it into scene B, and it didn't fit the scene that actually happened. And like whatever, all the money they spent on fucking marketing, which must have been the goddamn trillions with how much Wicked is everywhere, they didn't put enough care, I think, into those trailers. But yeah, I could not be happier to be wrong because I think that this movie, Wicked, is about as perfect of an example as a stage to screen adaptation could be.
Yeah.
Like it delivers everything from the play, the feel of a play. Like it feels like you're watching an actual Broadway play, except it's just expanded in scale, and it just adds a few things to help make it its own, which is also very nice. Because and that's the thing we talk about every time. I think we've mentioned like a play adaptation. Like you want to do justice to the original and do what they do, but you also want to give you something to make it worth making a movie out of. You know what I mean? So really liked it. All my expectations based again on those trailers blown away.
Yeah, I mean that's a top 10 movie of the year for me. I have it in the 90s, gave it a 92. I gave it 79 for Gladiator. I mean it's excellent. Like I guess if I would have one critique, it's a little long in the tooth, maybe in some spots, but I don't know if it even really mattered all that much. Like it didn't make the movie. I didn't feel the movie's like length. Like I think you could have made it tighter. Like there could have been some spots that you could have like, maybe chopped up some of like the regular dialogue and just gone to the next song because the music does a great job of kind of moving things along. But I mean, just outstanding from everybody, song and dance. All the musical numbers are great. They're all like showstoppers. Opening was pretty damn good. The OG font to open the movie with the title, that was fucking
Yeah.
awesome. That was awesome. Um, everything was great. Um, I had a blast with it. Jonathan Bailey was awesome. Maybe you could argue that I thought Dancing Through Life was probably one of the best parts of the movie. Granted, it was like 20 minutes long, so like
Mhm.
to take up a good chunk of it. But it was great, and I'd say probably a top three ending of the year. like just an unreal ending. Like that's like a stand up and clap type movie ending.
Hmm.
So yeah, I mean, one of the weirdest press tours you'll ever see. Again, I'll take a debate on this. I don't think I'm wrong. Is the most heavily marketed movie since The Force Awakens. You could maybe argue Last Jedi, but since a Star Wars movie, Marvel never had to market this much. So it was all in your face. It was kind of cringy. It was kind of annoying, and then it's gonna be one of the biggest movies of the year, and it's
Gonna make a
very
billion
well
dollars.
deserved.
Yeah.
Super. It's dark horse. It's dark horse, but it is a legitimate dark horse threat to win Best Picture. I don't think it will, but the odds were 8,000 2 weeks ago, and now they're
Win
1,200.
Hmm.
to win?
Absolutely. In a year where there's no clear winner, where the contenders for it are Honora, amazing movie, second favorite movie of the year, incredible movie. Pretty grating movie though. That is like that, and I'm not sure Sean Baker is going to rally the troops to get him to win there. The Brutal's a 3.5 hour long movie. It's very good. Are is the much larger voting pool. Now, a couple years ago, I would not say this, but this is a larger voting pool for the Academy now. Are they going to like the Brutalist? Conclave, I guess maybe. Dune Part 2, I think, came out way too early and is being hurt by the fact that last year a large epic won in
Hmm.
Oppenheimer. I'm not saying it's going to win, but it went from 8,000 a few weeks ago on DraftKings to 1,200 this week. It is a legitimate threat to win Best Picture
Did like a
with that big of a
Saquon
voting
movement.
pool.
Yeah, that was
Mhm.
crazy.
I hadn't
Legacy
considered that.
property too. Like if this was like Blurpo the musical, something that was made up yesterday, maybe not. But like, it's a legacy property, and
Yep.
oh they love that shit.
Jeff, I'm getting angry thinking about how West Side Story didn't win Best Picture now.
Well that's a whole different discussion. I would agree with you on because that movie probably yeah,
God,
that's a whole different discussion.
I
That's
just
the best
started
music
thinking
of the
about
last 10
that.
years.
My blood started boiling.
Good ass movie.
But all right, so I was with you all. I think we've all talked about this trailer. The trailers were terrible the whole way through. The press tour even worse. Just terrible. But you know what? Ariana Grande, you proved me wrong. Cynthia Revo, you proved me wrong. You are talented as hell. Those songs were incredible. I'm not familiar with the Wicked, I mean, musical at all. Never seen it. Never listened to the soundtrack at all. But they knocked those songs out of the park. Out of the park. I'm lower than you all, but my complaints are more technical. So I don't really want to like I don't love the way this movie looked. I've seen some people say most people say it looks better than the trailers. I think it looks marginally better. It was grating for me to look at that backlighting for, 3 hours. I think they'll fix that in the next go around, which I'm happy about. Um Also didn't really love not so much the choreography, just the way they shot the dance scenes. But overall, just a very, very fun time. Like this is absolutely what you want out of this type of movie. People are going to flock to the theaters and they're going to leave happy. That's like the biggest compliment I can give pretty much any big blockbuster is that, 5-year-old girls are going to go see this and they're going to love it. 70-year-old women are going to go see this and love it. I've seen guys who got dragged to the theater with their girlfriends. They've loved it. Guys who go out on their own, like White Boy Rick, they've loved it. So that's like the biggest thing. This is a great movie. I'm happy it's doing well, and hopefully, it does pass $1 billion because I don't know if you all saw every movie in the top 10 right now is a sequel, and I guess you could call this one too. But this would be the only non-sequel this year to be in the top 10 for highest grossing. So I'm rooting for it.
It rocks so hard that Despicable Me 4 didn't make $1 billion. Like I'm glad it just made under it. Like I'm good for them. They made their money. Good for the studios. But
Yeah.
I'm glad it it just missed. Like that's a win. That's a win right there.
Yeah. Like the
That's
fucking fisherman ad with like the $1. Like, oh, almost got it. Yeah, but yeah, I would agree with a lot of your guys' assessments too. I think like the big positives for me, like I think the production value for the physical sets that they had were really good. A lot of the sequences, like when they're in I always want to say like Whoville every single time I talk about this. It's so close to in my brain, like
Munchkin
Oz.
Man.
Yeah, whenever they're like in Munchkinland, like all these places, when they have like a physical set, all that stuff I think looked great. The trailers made it feel like it was gonna be super overwrought with CGI. I feel like it was a lot more limited than I thought it would be to more background shit. And I think that they had a lot of these great looking extras, really good costume design, and like a lot of care put into like all of that, which is amazing and so I think important, especially in like trying to make a movie feel like a musical. Erivo and Grande were perfectly cast. They're both their whole way, we all knew like they are super talented people, but like it was like almost like like the Hulk, I'm built for this. Like that was Ariana Grande specifically with the character of Glinda, but like that was fantastic. I think the music was amazing. Like the classic songs are all great. The new stuff that they had was also awesome. And I think that the cinematography does a really good job of highlighting those moments, especially in that last scene we're talking about. Like that last sequence, it's tough to underscore a music moment better than they did with how they structured that whole scene from like a cinematography standpoint. And we'll talk about spoilers here. So if you haven't watched yet, skip forward I guess to the end. But yeah, so and then a couple of characters like legacy characters from the play showing up. That shit was fucking that was a big like
I stood up and saluted in my
I
theater
was
when I
like,
saw friend of the pod,
oh
Kristen Chenoweth, show up. Oh my God.
Our talented coworker Quigs, I may be making requests for him to do like the portals from Endgame
yeah,
when they
yeah,
show
yeah.
up once it comes out. That's a very funny. Like that's exactly what it felt like. Also, like that was like I had it spoiled for me. The guy behind I don't know how detailed I want to get. Not that the guy listens anyway, but there's a guy that works at the Cinemark I go to, and he's a really nice guy, but he talks my ear off every time I go there. Sometimes so much so that I miss all of the previews. And he spoiled the cameos for me.
Oh no, that stinks.
Unbelievable move on Friday morning. So I show up, he goes, "What two today?" And I was like, "Come on, you got to know." This also you don't know his energy. He told me he's like, I don't know. He gave me like this thing. He goes, and I don't want to hear that Godzilla -1 is more fun than Godzilla versus Kong 2. And I was like, oh god, like that's his energy. He's like big
You're the
like
finger wag guy, yeah.
yeah, you're seeing like it's like like that one anime kid in high school videos, like kind of
Yeah,
that
yeah.
energy. So
Yep.
he spoiled it for me. And I
But
like
there's like one thing you can spoil the movie. There's
It's like
only
the
one
only
thing.
spoilable thing, yeah.
It's like the fuck, dude. But the only nice thing is I thought it would be like, oh, there they are. Not they're literally singing like an entire song with them. I was like, okay,
Yeah.
that's pretty awesome.
Yeah. That
And they
was
were
the
it
portals is a
was
good description. It was a portals last moment.
and she was great. She was, I mean, obviously she did the role for, I mean, both of them did the role for I don't know how long, probably a decade, and they stepped right back into it. It was like perfect. Like she was perfect as the older Glenda, the faux Glenda.
Yeah.
It was so funny.
Yeah, they were amazing. And that was such like a nice tribute too. And I think they had a bunch of other people from the original cast like cameo throughout. I think the writer and like some other people that are involved in like the creation of the musical were like scattered throughout. At least that's what it said in the wiki as like random smaller cameo characters. That's all really nice because like again, when you're doing a stage to screen thing, like you want to pay like an homage to these people or to this original play. You want to do everything that they do and do your own thing. And I think that they did that. And I think if you're like a fan of Wicked, like you see, especially like we're just like general movie fans. I don't think any of us would claim to be like, oh my God, I'm a fucking day one Wicked Broadway stan. I go there. I've seen the play five. None of us are that. But still, that moment is so fucking cool. That was such a great moment. I think the only things I could really throw as like a con in here, like the middle definitely drags a little bit, but I'm with Jeff and like there's not many points where I'd be like, oh well, this whole sequence was useless. Like this, you could have cut this easily. Definitely not enough to cut where you could turn this into a
No.
one part into anything less than a two-part movie, which now I think it makes more sense.
Yeah.
Um, I
Good
didn't
ending too. Like the ending was like
the
it's a
perfect
great ending.
cutoff.
It's obviously how the Broadway show goes too, but like it felt very like it's not it was a cliffhanger, but it didn't feel like a cliffhanger. It's a good end to that first that character arc.
Perfect conclusion to that, and especially just like them parting ways, like Glinda and
Hmm.
Felba. I hate that name.
My
Alphaba.
Yeah.
my big thing is that it Into the Woods is not a great example. There's a lot of big musical numbers in Wicked, but Into the Woods had this thing that always bothered me is that it didn't feel like the Broadway show at all. It kind of is the same thing when you say like the Lion King remake is the same thing as the Lion King cartoon, but not really. That's basically what Into the Woods was. You're just like it's missing this
Sure.
like it doesn't have that Broadway feel. This felt like the Broadway show while also being cinematic, but again, not sacrificing the Broadway elements. Like it felt like I was watching both, which is like it's that perfect fusion, which not a lot get right. West Side Story, that's one that got it right. And when that happens, it works and it's great. When it doesn't, it's like an Into the Woods. I don't hate Into the Woods. I enjoy Into the Woods, but like Into the Woods got a Best Picture nomination. That's fucking
Hmm.
crazy. But like Into the Woods like was way worse than it had any business being because it should have been way better than it was. And then because of that, because it felt like it was a movie where they happened to be singing. This felt like a Broadway adaptation.
I think, and I don't know if you guys would agree with me. I think part of it maybe is the quality of the singing. Like I think that like the
Yeah.
chorus singing in this, it didn't feel too perfect. It felt like an actual Broadway cast singing, where it's like there are imperfections in the voice, whatever. It felt like you could hear that, and that I think makes it feel more like you're at this play. And at the same time, while you're in like this play, you're seeing these big, massive, giant scenes, like big, deep scenery, like and all that shit. I think was awesome. I again, the only negatives I'm trying to nitpick here, like I didn't love Michelle Yeoh in this role. I don't think she was particularly strong. Ethan Slater, I don't think there's a face I want to punch more
Ah, I've come around on
than
this
this little
guy.
fucking SpongeBob guy. Every time I see his face, and like he's perfectly cast in this role, like you know what I mean. Like that is the kind of like the character, like
Munchkin.
dorky little munchkin or whatever, like frumpy guy. But like that is, and I won't even put it as a con. That's not a con. Michelle Yeoh is the only one where I was like,
I'm
that's made up
excited to
for.
see the people who don't know Wicked and realize like who these characters are and what happens to them and
Yeah,
like it is
That's
like there are like people who don't know that and I hope people don't look it up who don't know that because they're gonna be like, oh, what the fuck?
yeah, it's
Like, there's
already
one
it's
very
already
obvious one
it
already,
got
but
spoiled for me
what?
already. Yeah, it
Oh yeah,
sucks.
yeah. Once you
Sucks. I
yeah,
was like,
I
well,
mean,
I wish I didn't know that.
I mean, there's one that's very obvious because it's like, well, what else would this one thing be they've singled out that they're talking about for 15 minutes in the plot? Uh, Jeff Goldblum also not in full, but he got if you had a scale of Ari of Kristen Chenoweth and Pierce Brosnan and Mamma Mia, Jeff Goldblum got closer to the Pierce Brosnan treatment. Like
hmm
the when he's like, "When you hear me now, darling, can't you hear me? SOS." Like that's basically what his song was.
yep,
That's the best part of Mamma Mia is when Pierce Brosnan just talks that song.
in a reprise. Yeah,
SOS. It's like Pierce, you cannot sing. So like Goldblum got it, but like they didn't have him go like all out.
yeah. That whole I think closing 25 was just so fucking good. It's
Yeah.
really tough to end on, and like you know that's going to be the ending thing. And they showed so much of that in the trailer too, which I hate. But like that moment was still so good and like so like powerful is probably like an over exaggeration, but like it felt like you felt it. It was a great cinematic, huge moment, and it was underscored, I think, by even cooler moments like you were saying before, like the cameos before that and all that shit. I really enjoyed Wicked. Blew away all my expectations from those horrible trailers, and very happy to be wrong about Wicked.
It made me think. It really made me think about uh cats
Yeah, me too. Me too. I've been
because
saying that to other people today. Yep.
that the part of the part of Defying Gravity, like the big thing that ends all the trailers, like that line at the end, or the I guess the whatever the fuck it's called musically. What do you
Yeah.
I don't know what you call
Like
that.
notes. I don't know what you were
Yeah,
saying.
the high note she hits, which she put her own spin on it, which I liked better in the movie than when I first heard it in the trailer because it is different. Like Memory in Cats is just as famous in terms of Broadway like moments. And like this got its moment on the big screen in Wicked, and Memory was the gassiest, wettest fart of all time.
So
And it's
bad.
just it's such a shame because look, Wicked's a very easy thing to pick up. It's Wizard of Oz. Cats is not. It is absurdly British. It doesn't translate all that well, and you kind of have to be a little bizarre to like it. Like I love it, and a lot of people do like it, and the music is great in Cats. But like that is such an iconic Broadway that song Memory, and it compared to Defying Gravity, it is like it's unbelievable, like the bastardization of fucking Cats and what they did to that movie. It's so sad because
Yeah.
it's just they'll never try that again. Like I don't think they ever will, nor should they.
No, no, absolutely not. I pray every day that they never try to remake Cats or adapt Cats.
God.
They
Yeah.
should do it. They should do it. They should put them in little costumes like they did in the Wizard of Oz, like the original Wizard of Oz. They should have them in those
I mean,
like, the
That
cat
would work
suits.
better.
The cat
It would
suits
have been
in
great.
the Broadway show look good. They
Yeah.
should have done that. That's the crazy thing. Like they look fantastic on stage. They're like, no. We gotta really make them smoother.
We have to fuck this up. We need to make this as fucked up as humanly possible. make it like the most visually abrasive thing you've ever seen in your fucking life. But yeah, it made me think of Cats, made me think of like all these other stage to screen adaptations and how like I feel like this is like the gold standard now as far as like stage to screen in recent memory of like, hey, you're gonna try and take a stage musical and make it into a big sweeping movie like an epic big budget movie. Like this is now that's the standard. Like this is exactly what you want to do. You want to give the homage to the original, but you don't want to overdo that like Lion King. You want to put a spin on your own thing, but you also don't want to change everything about it. Like you want to. This is, I think, such a perfect example of what all this whatever future adaptation should strive for. And I really liked it. Yeah, I'm at like I'd say like a 91 roughly for it. Gooch, where were you at?
About a 75. But like
So
I said, I do have I really don't like the way this movie looks. I will probably never rewatch it, but I'll listen to the soundtrack quite a bit. But I do not like the way this
oh,
movie
you
looks.
really didn't like the I thought the CGI was like in
Not the
parts like
CGI, it's the
the
backlighting where it's
backlight.
like
Okay.
it takes away from how beautiful these practical sets that they built are, and it just dulls out the color and you can't see their faces correctly. I think they'll fix it in part two, which I'm hoping for, and I think they will. But for part one, yeah, it was tough for me to look at it. There's some editing things I don't love. The choreography couldn't really see it at points. It kind of sticks onto the two main characters too much. But like I said, these are very like technical things I didn't like. But from like an enjoyment, like overall, like I'm just very happy with the way this turned out. I really
Mhm.
am.
Big fans of Wicked, not as much big fans. I can't believe you rated Gladiator higher, Gladiator 2 higher. That's sickening
Not,
work.
not that crazy.
That's sickening work, my friend. And next week, I think we will do Moana 2 coming out. That'll be a fun one. I feel like I've watched like a good kids movie. I feel like I've been missing, other than like Inside Out 2, I guess, is probably the last good one I think I've watched. Queer
And
is
sing along in theater. Don't forget, The Rock said it's okay.
The Rock said he wants you to sing along in theater. Don't forget about that. And John Chu also said you should ask the theaters to turn the volume up when you watch Wicked,
I
which
think they did do that. My theater was loud as fuck.
dude, it's but imagine how much that sucks for the guy like in the theater next door. Like that's gotta be so fucking
I saw
brutal.
I saw your tweet about someone watching Conclave.
Yeah, and just like blasting Defying Gravity, just reverberating throughout your entire
Thematically, it works with the
mhm.
ending of Conclave.
A little bit, yeah. But maybe Queer too. We could watch. Can't wait to watch our good boy Daniel Craig bust it down. He's gonna tear those little boy pussy down. Okay, so watch those movies. We'll be back next week.